I'm Sherine Lovegrove. I am a conscious pregnancy coach, and what I do is help busy professional women who are struggling on their pregnancy journey. They're basically stressed, overwhelmed, depleted. They feel as though they're being pulled apart and are out of control. And what I do is really help them bring together the pieces that seem to be pulled apart, and I help them to build on their emotional and their mental strength so that they can be able to make the right kinds of decisions that will serve both them and their baby.
Nice. And do you work with them at all stages of pregnancy, or is there like a common denominator?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends, but I do work at all stages. I mean, I think the optimum is to see women before they're pregnant, right? So
Hmm.
that we can get them into a whole different realm when they start moving and become pregnant. But anywhere along the line, you can do magnificent work.
Yeah.
Anywhere, even right at the laborhood time, you can do amazing stuff that can actually just transcend a person's journey.
Could you tell us more about that, about the actual labor and our emotional? Yeah, sorry, go on.
No, carry on. No, no. Yes. I mean, obviously during labor, a lot of the time, and I think this is one of the biggest things that happen with women is that, well, not just women, but I think often with families, is that we have come from a medical frame, right? A medical framework. And so very often when we get into labor ward or women get into labor ward, they kind of give over their power.
Mm,
And they, of course, you can understand this really so much because you want to look after your baby, right? You want
yeah.
to make sure you have a healthy child. So you're going to defer to somebody that you think knows better. But very often, what happens is women don't realize that they actually, if they really listen and are in tune with their body, they actually will know when to push, when not to push. They will know how. They will know how to be able to manage any kind of discomfort that they may have. We're pushing out a baby. It's not going to be not painful or not discomfort, right? You're going to feel the pressure. But how you handle the waves of contractions, how you embrace them, let's
Mhm.
say, will change the way your body responds to it. So if we see a contraction as something like a wave and it's bringing your baby to you, you're going to be less fearful than when you think of a contraction as something that's being done to you.
Yeah.
So just having the sense of knowing that you have power over the way you think about things, the kinds of ways in which you can go into your body and talk to your baby and actually get your baby to move. Say, for example, it's got a different presentation. You can actually talk to your baby, and your baby often can move in response because when you relax, your muscles relax, the baby has more chance of turning and getting it to a right position.
Yeah.
So if you can do that, you can have an amazing pregnancy
Love that. And how do you sort of take those first steps to help someone be more in tune with their body if they're not?
if they're not. Yes, I mean, we live in a world, and I think from our previous conversation, I remember you saying that you didn't even really know very much about how your body talks to you,
Yeah.
right? And you learned a lot about the somatics of our body. It's really interesting. Most of the women that come to me are really busy professionals, right? So they're leading a very busy life and they haven't really spent time in their body to listen to their body. A lot of them are actually doing a lot of gym, lots of exercise that's very outwardly pounding, right? And they don't really listen to their body when their body is telling them to stop because there's another agenda going on. They've got to fit in. They've got to look good. They've got to be able to run the show in whatever they're doing. Okay, they have to prove themselves. So often they say yes when they should say no. One of
Do
the
you think
key
that's because of the what we see from like discipline and the kind of expectation at work to consistently show up regardless of your body? So then you feel selfish if you've then, sorry, not selfish, I don't know the right word.
selfish, definitely they feel very selfish.
Yeah, if they've then not showed up for themselves, but
Yeah.
they show up for all of these other people.
Well, I think a lot of women are trying to prove themselves.
Yeah.
Women, culturally, it's changing here slightly, but it hasn't completely changed. The whole of society hasn't completely changed. And so women don't necessarily, they always feel they have to prove something to be equal to their male counterparts, right?
Yeah.
And so they push through all the time. So they ignore their body by the push through. And to be really honest, women actually have to work 10 times harder than men generally because they're moving into a world which is not natural for them.
Hmm.
Actually, the world has been more naturally geared towards men because that's how, women used to stay at home and do the caretaking. But now women have moved into the world of business in this kind of structure, and they have to prove that they can do what men can do, right? And
Yeah.
it's not because that's what they want to do necessarily. It's because they get looked down on if they don't do it, right?
Mm.
If they go to look after their child or any of those kinds of things, or they get a call and say, "Oh, we we need you at home," immediately she's stigmatized.
Yeah.
A lot of women really find it very difficult to manage that internal pressure. But pressure is what we feel, right? And
Yeah.
if we keep ignoring the pressure, then what happens is that the feeling goes away, but the damage doesn't.
Mm.
And so women carry a lot of the stress before they're pregnant.
Yeah. Because we mentioned that as well, that,
Hmm.
a woman near enough cannot get pregnant if she is hyper stressed.
Yeah, yeah. And we know that one of the biggest reasons for infertility in the West happens to be because of stress.
Yeah.
And we know that most illnesses actually start because of stress. And
Hmm.
then when we get ill, the stress just ramps up and that then hinders a lot of our ability to heal, right? Because now the terrain of our environment, our body environment, is now in a state that's really way out of whack. Now it's in distress rather than in stress, in
Yeah.
stress mode.
And do you think by saying no to things and being more in that, like, listening to your body, what do you think could be the potential detriments, the consequences of that? Because I think women are doing it because they're thinking of all of these different consequences. And I think it would just be nice to, like, brainstorm that actually, like, you're not going to die. Your house isn't going to, you're not going to turn into poverty within a week.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to get someone to slow down, right?
Yeah.
To get someone to slow down enough that you can ask these questions.
Hmm.
Because even though you might say, that money's not going to end, fear is so strong and so real
Yeah.
because it's not just about the money. It's about everything that goes with it, right? And so I don't have the money, then I'm not going to have this and I'm not going to have that and I'm not going to have that. And then all of that culminates. And if, it's kind of like you tell someone you'll do well in an exam, right?
Hmm.
It's still an uncertainty. It's still an unknown. And
Yeah.
you will still be stressed a little bit about that exam, even though you've
Mm.
studied, right? Because there's still unknowns. And it's about how do you handle the unknown? How do you surrender in the unknown?
Yeah.
And it is about a process of surrendering because your body is being taken over by a baby, right? It is being taken over, right? And it is a process of learning that we have to surrender our body and surrender ourselves to this process. And if you are able to do that surrendering, then the fear no longer exists because now you've handed it over. Somebody else is going to look after it from a metaphysical sense, is what happens, right? And it's no different from us handing a prayer over to God. The
Mm.
mechanism is the handing over and the trust that goes with it. So when we trust and hand over something, like we'll say, okay, I just trust my body, then what happens is the body says, thank you very much. I will just get on and do my thing because now I don't have to hold on. And it releases itself. And often that is what changes everything for a person. Yeah, or a mum. And, I don't ever advocate that we're going to give you a fantastic pregnancy, but I do advocate that we'll give you a pregnancy where you'll feel in control, where you feel that whatever happens, whether you're going to have a cesarean or not, that you can still make choices in that and that you won't be browbeaten into having a cesarean at that moment in time. You could delay it maybe unless something's really going on, but that you would have more control in that whole decision-making process. And when we feel like we have control and we've got agency, we feel so much better.
Yeah. A lot less overwhelmed because there's options, there's solutions
Yeah.
now.
And so many of my women talk to me, and when they come in, you know, particularly if they have had not a good birth, you ask them where the real problems are. And the real problems have been because something's happened and their partners are so frightened. And yes, they're frightened, so they buy into the fear and they end up having cesareans that probably they wouldn't have needed. And so often many women are actually put into labor before they're actually really, really body wise.
Okay, so can you request to wait?
You can, but you have to be really, really
Oh,
coherent and very at one with that decision. And I think a lot of the time, most of us go into a doctor's office and we don't actually ask or have all the possibilities within us. As we don't go in and we say, okay, you want me to do this, tell me a little bit more. We
mm,
often we go in there like rabbits in the headlights, and then we come out and we think, I didn't get that answered. So I get a lot of my women to actually really go and ask questions where we prepare them. What are the kinds of questions that you might need in labor to ask? So if, for example, if she's not progressing, what might she ask the person? So I will say one of the things that I often say to people is that a nice way to think about it is if you say, oh, well, I'm 3 centimeters dilated, well, only 7 to go. So those kinds of words, only 7 to go. I'm already 3. So you get them to change those energy around the words, right?
yeah.
And or how much comfort I have rather than discomfort.
Hmm.
All right, I've got this amount of comfort. Oh, I think I can manage. Because when we have a sense of comfort, we are more likely and more able to be able to handle the next moment. Because if we're asking ourselves that kind of detailed question, we can do that. In the same way that if I needed to have an operation, I would want to be sure there were a lot of questions. I would go in with my little tick box before I go in, and I
Yeah,
ask the doctor, and I don't leave until I've ticked all the boxes.
nice.
That's the same thing that we need to have women do when they go into labor.
Hmm.
They need to have the tick boxes, or when they go to a doctor, need to have the tick boxes.
I think I'm going to start doing that as well when I go to
I
the
think it's a
doctor.
really important thing. And, maybe there are just 3 or 4 that you really need out of your 10, but it's really important to be able to ask these kinds of questions. I mean, I had someone that I was present at the labor because she had had a really bad labor before, and she went in, and the nurse just ruptured her membranes, didn't tell her, and ruptured the membranes. So that means it's the forewaters, because the hindwaters had ruptured, but the forewaters hadn't. So she just did a vaginal thing because she had gone in and disrupted them. That was interesting. And then a little while later, they said to her, "Not you haven't carried on in your labor, so we're going to take you for a cesarean." So I just happened to be there, and I said, "Well, can you give me the criteria for the cesarean?" It's because I was going there as an advocate, rather, and the person said, "Well, she has been in labor. I know that we've only ruptured the membranes." I said, "Well, she's not distressed. The baby's not distressed. There's no meconium. There's nothing to indicate that this baby has to be born now. There's nothing. The baby's heart rate's fine. There's no decrease on contractions, nothing." And what happened was I spoke to the doctor, and the doctor said, "No, no, 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 we can do the cesarean tomorrow if need be." So we delayed it, right? So I went home. I came back when she started having slightly stronger contractions the next morning, and she delivered that day.
Nice.
So she didn't have a cesarean. We just
Hmm.
spent time being with her and just doing exercises that would allow her to just breathe nice and deeply, but work with her body rather than against her body.
Yeah.
She loved to sing through her pain, so she sang through her pain. Um, and that was interesting because the staff didn't really know how to handle that very well. But it was a different birth, and she was really grateful that she was able to have a
I
different birth
bet.
from her first birth. So I think it's really important to, and I mean, many times I'm not at the birth, but this was many years ago that I was able to do that. But recently I had someone who was incredibly stressed out, and we were doing positive intelligence mindfulness training with her, and she was booked for cesarean because she had had a cesarean on the first birth. And I said, and that, it was really interesting because there was no way I was going to go against the cesarean. I just said, "Oh, you're booked, great. Let's work on the anxiety and do whatever we can to help you manage and navigate what's going on around you. And after about, he was doing positive intelligence, is that you do mindfulness exercises every day, short burst exercise to stack up and really get your muscles and your body to respond to you.
Nice.
And on the 8th week, I think, she said to me, "I'm not going to go for a cesarean anymore." So I said, I did a take back, and she said to me, "No, I realize that the midwives are there and they will help me." She said, "I really do feel that thing. The trust will be there." And she said, "And you know what? I'll make sure that the person that was causing a lot of trouble, which was her husband," she said, well, I'm going to make sure he won't be there. If he causes trouble, I'm going to kick him out. And I said, well, what we can do is we can prime your body so that you'll be ready by the time you get to the hospital, you'll be ready to deliver.
Mhm.
And that's what happened. We
Yeah.
set the intention that she would deliver, and we set the intention that if there was any problem, the baby would tell her and that she would get some insight. So we set up some triggers about what would let her body know that things were not okay, not going
What
well.
were some of those triggers?
Well, if our body, if we can set up a trigger, like for example, on your left side of in your visual memory or on your left side, you can actually have an image of something. Like if you're allergic to something, you can ask the allergy by saying, uh, "Okay, I've got the allergy on my left side, and on your right side, you can say, 'Is it this?'" And what will happen is if you have you could put an image of a food product there, for example. And what often happens is if you get a gut response, you're training them to get a gut response so that they'll go, "Ah, it's not that," or "It's not that." And you can ask, "Well, I don't understand. Tell me what you think it is." And I remember doing someone that she had a bit of an allergy, and I said to her, "Okay, well, it may be a cream, so let's go with the cream." And we were asking various different things that she'd used the cream, and eventually she heard coming from right within her, "Damn aloe vera."
Wow.
And then she's, "Oh my god, I've only used the aloe vera. I've been told to use the aloe vera." And there was aloe vera. So if you develop a relationship with your body, if you ask it, if you keep asking it,
Mhm.
when we remember I said something earlier on, I said that if the pain when you're stressed and you ignore the signals, the signal goes away.
Mhm.
So sometimes if you've been doing that to your body for a long time, your body doesn't know how to tell you now. So
Mm.
if you've got to find a pathway for it to speak to you.
Yeah.
So I know that I ask my body, "What's this about?" And it often will give me an image. If I don't get it, I'll go, "Okay, what else could it be?" And eventually the body will give me an image that will be exactly what it is that I need to pay attention to. But this is about training, right? This is about
Mhm.
training, helping someone learn how to listen to their body in a different way. So we'll do a lot of breathing exercises, getting people to feel their body in a different way to learn how to give it a shape, a color, a size, learn to kind of go into it like traveling in, and look at the different layers that might surround that problem. All of these are things that you can learn, and your body, because it's so symbolic, it really doesn't take long for your body to talk to you.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it really doesn't. I'm lucky because I get information coming straight away, but I've been doing this
Nice.
a really long time. But for someone that's really busy and hasn't really grown up to pay attention to their body because we're taught to ignore ourselves for a very long time, then it's really a challenge. It's a challenge. But
And
one
would you say the starting point for somebody who's never really tried to do it before, do you think the starting points would be like meditation and breath work?
I know what I always well, that's one part of it, but
Yeah.
actually I get them to really just pay attention to the symptoms. So I might say, when you decided you had made a decision between going to a movie or not going to a movie, for example. What was that feeling? Where did you feel it in your body? And really work around that feeling. And a lot of people that really aren't able to get that, then we have to start doing it slowly by getting them into their body by doing a slow relaxation and start with little things like thinking about someone you love.
Nice.
And then often they'll say, "Oh yes, it's a feeling in my chest." Okay. And then you might go a little bit deeper and you say, "Well, where in your chest?" And they'll
Mm.
say, "Oh, it's in my heart." Okay. So now you can say, okay, well, what kind of heart is that heart? You can start to play with the heart, right? You can say, oh, they'll say, oh, it's like a Valentine's heart, right? Then you just stay with it. And some people will say to you, I don't know what I'm seeing here. It just doesn't make sense, but it makes sense to them. Or some other people will just say, oh, that's what it is. But once they have the mechanism to just believe in the idea that their body talks to them,
Mm.
then they're already galvanized into it, right? They already can start the process. And then it's just about practice doing it so that you get really used to listening and trusting your body to give you the right kinds of answers. But
Yeah.
meditation, part of positive intelligence is what I do, but it's any kind of meditation. We have found is that the short burst, regular meditation throughout the day. So sitting quietly and just doing something like taking a nice deep breath in and out, focusing on one point, which is like learning to focus on what we call foveal vision. And then just as you keep your eyes on that point, soften your eyes and just imagine that you can see the edges of the room. Imagine that
Mm.
you can see them because your visual field can see those things. And you can even get the sense of what's behind you and what's in
Yeah.
front of you. But as you do that, what often happens in the spatial feeling of our body is that we're activating the parasympathetic nervous system. And the
Mhm.
parasympathetic nervous system is really great because most hunters do the same thing. They quiet and they sit in this peripheral vision because we can hear better and we can see movement.
Okay. Yeah.
When we're in foveal vision, we can see crystal clear and pictures and colors. But when we're in the peripheral vision, we mainly see black and white because our color rods are in the foveal area of our body, of our eye, whereas our retina, that part of the retina, the back parts of for the dispersed vision is mainly black and white. So
Nice.
it's very different. So there are different skills that come with it.
Yeah.
And at the same time, when you're in that space, because you can hear better, you can hear the cadence of your body better.
Wow, I love that, yeah. That makes so much sense. But it's just like, I think it's wild to comprehend how available and accessible that is right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think if you're not intentionally making a practice out of it, it's so easy to just completely forget.
Gosh, yes. It's very easy to forget, especially in a busy day. So you
Mm.
have to do little things like make sure, for example, when you put your foot out of your bed or when you wake up, you take those first 3 or 4 breaths, right?
Yeah.
You make that a ritual. So what you want to do is try and add things into rituals. So when you brush your teeth, that you really focus on brushing your teeth. And if you find yourself thinking about other things, you go, whoa, come back. I'm brushing my
Mm.
teeth. Let's think about each tooth that I'm brushing. They say
Yeah.
you should spend about 3 seconds on each tooth. Hey, that's how long you should spend. So if that's the case, then just spend that time just quietly. And even if it means that you sit there and you hum at the same time, that humming will also activate the parasympathetic nervous system because humming actually helps hear differently. It
Mhm.
vibrates. And the brush, most of us probably have a brush that actually is a vibrating brush. You can really tune into that, right?
Yeah.
And so, and when you've done that, you're already set for the day. You're pretty much set. So if you start your day set, right?
Yeah.
That means that every time during the day, you're more likely to get back to the reset faster. But if you give yourself, if you set the intention first thing, this is what I'm going to do in the morning. It may take a little while to get into the habit, but if you say, when I wake up, I'm not going to get out of bed, I'm just going to breathe. When I
Nice.
put my foot out of bed, I might say an affirmation. I might say, you know, every day can be a different day,
Nice.
and today is a new day, yesterday's past. Something like that. You could start with that kind of affirmation. The most important about an affirmation is don't predict a future. Just say today is a different day, right? Because it is a different day. That's a fact. Yesterday is past. It tells the brain straight away, yesterday's done.
Mhm.
We're now in this new day. And so and literally your foot goes forward and you're moving. And because you're moving now, things actually in the brain, because our brain is really interesting, it can actually move things to the back, more in the back, sort of sense, as we move forward. in our forward progression.
Lovely.
So you already start by doing that. And then when you brush your teeth or after your breakfast or whatever, you have another reset. And if you do a couple of resets first thing in the morning, you'll find that energetically, your day is going to be better.
I can really see how that can prevent any sort of rumination as you're getting dressed for the day or,
Yeah.
doing your makeup or getting dressed. So I really like that it's like the first sort of 10 minutes of your day is going to be solely focused on the presence of today. I really, really love that so much. What's one of your, if you had to pick like your top 3 things that you love doing to be, I don't want to say the best kind of you, but the 3 things that you found really healing for yourself and that you still embody today, what would you say that they are?
Well, I think a prayer is a really good thing to do. And before I get out of bed, I have a prayer that I say, um, which is, really about asking God to come in, asking divine energy to come in, whatever we feel, but just asking to be a vessel so that I can shine that light and just allow that to be present in me. So I stay there until I can feel the movement within myself, that I feel like this energy is moving in me and around me.
Wow, and
Um,
can you actually feel it?
yes,
That's
because
exceptional.
when you have a really when I train mums to listen to themselves, when we start to get that inner cadence, right?
Mhm.
When you start to feel that, you start to actually feel your whole body vibrate.
Yeah,
So that's
okay.
something maybe you can practice for yourself. Is
Yeah.
just feel your whole body vibrate, and you can make that stronger just by thinking about it. The more emotion
Mm.
you put into it, the more you're going to vibrate because
That's wow.
energy is emotion, right?
And can you just do it without having to be relaxed and stuff?
Yeah, you can. It's a little harder though, right? It's a little harder because if you haven't trained yourself,
Mhm.
it's harder to get into the state.
Yeah. And what state would you class that as?
I think that's a state of receiving.
Okay.
A state of receiving, and I guess when I think about it, for me, it's a state of reverence.
Okay.
So I think if you have a little prayer to whoever, it doesn't matter, but if you have something that you are connected to, it makes you feel bigger than you are, in the
Yes.
sense of you feel yourself expand. You don't feel your physical you is expanding, but you can feel you are expanding as an energetic field. And it's a very different place to be in. It's, in our brain, we create different brain waves when we go into prayer. When we go into prayer, what often happens is it is most of the time when we pray, we're actually saying a lot of prayers a few times, right? So we are used to the prayer we're saying, if you're saying a regular prayer. So that in itself allows our cognitive brain, our very thinking beta brain sort of thing, those brain waves to actually convert into alpha and theta waves. So, and actually, what happens is we tend to go more into the posterior part of our brain,
Mhm.
which is where the pineal gland sits and where the parts of our brain of our cerebellum. And the pineal gland I call our God center, really.
Yeah.
It's the center where we connect to the whole of ourself. And the cerebellum actually has more nerves than what's in the brain. And the cerebellum is actually our proprioception. So it's all the muscles that we feel in our body is mapped out in a
Wow. That's
360.
great.
So that's why we can imagine we can feel a wall, right?
Yeah.
Because we have this proprioceptive ability to imagine we can expand ourselves out there, feel the wall, then come back, right? That's the greatness of what human beings have.
Yeah.
We develop
Yeah.
particular cells when we're 2 years old.
Uh-huh.
These spindle fibers get grown, and we then have the capacity to see ourselves outside ourselves, to observe ourselves,
Yeah, of course, yeah.
right? So we become the perceiver, the perceived, and the perception. So,
Mhm.
all of those. So it's really quite interesting when you think,
That
"Oh
is
my goodness, we can do this." But this is if we create the state we wanna be in, that magnifies, and
mm.
so that state really makes things shift. One of the things which often tell people, so often we talk about the law of attraction, and I know I talk about it sometimes to my clients, but not very often. But we do law of attraction every time we say a prayer. If we're saying
Yeah.
prayer in a different way, right? If we're saying prayer from a state of no attachment, but we're saying
Mm.
it from a state of surrender, it's a very different prayer.
It is a very different
And that's what you
paradigm.
try and get your mums to do, right? We want them to have their own prayer. They may even find their own song for themselves that they can sing and honor themselves so they can pray to themselves, right? Because they very rarely do. But if they can
Mm.
find their song and they can hear their baby's song, it really makes a very big difference to the way they connect to their baby.
Absolutely, and I would imagine that even when the baby is born,
Mm.
that connection is so strong,
Mm.
which could potentially lead to, like, a reduction of, like, postpartums,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Because I think when you feel like everything is happening to you,
Mm.
and this is, like, a terrible thing,
Yeah.
it's your mind having to convince yourself that you want this.
Yeah.
Rather than your body, like you said, kind of like really trying to embrace all of the different senses that's happening. I think that's really interesting to consider.
Yeah. And I think it's really important. I think why I said, we should see people before pregnancy because you want to have
Yeah.
an optimum environment, an optimum body environment, mental environment, mentally, physically, and emotionally that they can handle things. But not only that, that really shifts and changes the hormone levels in the body.
Mm.
Right. So that means because when we're pregnant, you're clearing hormones both for your baby and for yourself, right? So you're getting extra hormones that are there to support the growth of the baby, to support you in being able to hold the baby. And often what happens is when you have your baby, all these hormones drop, right? If you are toxic before, that means that the hormones are going to go even higher, and that means when the baby's born, they drop lower.
Okay.
And now you've got a massive drop in comparison to someone who's regulated going up in pregnancy. Someone who's toxic is going to go up here. Someone who's here, the drop from here to here is like very little in comparison from the drop from here
Mm.
to down here, right? It's a bigger drop. And so they are more likely to experience postnatal distress, postnatal psychosis, all of those kinds of conditions.
Hmm.
So you want to make sure that that a woman is really healthy and really birth fit, right?
Yeah.
And mentally fit in order that you can have a good birth.
Hmm.
And also that of course means that if you learn to get, life is hard, right? We're going to always have struggles. Doesn't matter what it is, but it's how quickly you respond to the struggle that's important, particularly during pregnancy, because when you experience some form of stress and you regulate very quickly, the baby is a perfect little antenna. The
Hmm.
baby goes up, down. It knows automatically how to switch down so that it self-regulates. And because it's just like it learns faster than adults, it learns so fast that it's already primed to handle difficulties. It's already primed to handle cold weather a little bit better, or a sudden shock or a sudden thing that's happened. So there's a definite correlation by being able to experience those fluctuations and the quick recovery to how babies are.
Okay. That's really interesting, and I
Yeah.
really like that concept that their antennas indicate self-soothe. Yeah, I like it because I just think that again, it would be so interesting to hear from the women that you've spoken, that you've coached, how, like, say if they come. I know it's very, very difficult to ever compare like siblings in regards to birth and how they then
Yeah.
respond when they come out. I think it would probably almost be impossible because there's so many indicators. But in my brain, I'm just thinking, I wonder how they then self-soothe on their own, just when they're out here in the world, like after they've been born. Because I just think that's a really interesting concept and not anything that's ever sort of been mentioned. I've got a significant amount of friends that have had babies and whatnot. Never have they sort of said, I'm going to try and regulate myself so then my baby can also learn how to self soothe just as I am now.
Yeah. There is a disconnect, isn't there?
Yeah,
There is a definite disconnect, I think. And I think, to be fair, it's a natural process, right?
yeah,
You get pregnant, you've got the hormones, you've got the body, you've got all of that. So, that's probably why it hasn't had the same kind of attention that it should have had, right?
mm,
Because it's relying on a physiological thing, not on a mental aspect that's been brought in. So I think that because you don't need to have a passport to have a baby, you just have a baby.
yeah,
We haven't really treated this with the due care it should have been.
yeah,
And so now we're coming, because neuroscience is our friend, we can see what's happening to babies. We can see what happens to babies in uteros too. We can do
excellent.
that. So, but what is really key is that we would notice, unfortunately, we would only notice downstream. We'll be able to see how kids are handling school, right? How are they handling illnesses? How are they handling things that are different to what we would see as the rest of the group of people that didn't have that. And in general, I think there is a big shift in consciousness that is happening because
Yeah,
there are so many kids now. I mean, I know it's the crystal age. I mean, we know that. But there is a whole consciousness that shifted, I think, because we've gone through a period of time where more mothers have been more aware, right? And now children are really starting to come into their own and starting to recognize the importance of paying attention to pollution. It's a different child that's growing up now in comparison to me many, many years ago, right?
yeah,
And you're different because you've already had the experience of parents that have gone through the area of the 1960s and the 1970s and 80s.
uh-huh,
So that in itself has changed. So your consciousness and your thinking is so different.
yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. I
absolutely.
think the biggest thing for myself wasn't anything to do emotionally. The biggest shift to realize how much has changed was the dates in which showers became normalized. And I know that's such a random thing to say,
Mm.
but when I realized, I was like, wait, what? And, like that concept really blew my mind when I was thinking, that's wild that it was just so common for people to be, I know, like having a bath in their kitchen.
Yeah,
Like we just wouldn't. And obviously, like I still grew up with like like a toilet being outside at like some neighbors down the road, and like different things like that. Just thinking it was funny, but I think when you realize how close it was
yeah.
to today, that really, and like medical interventions as well. Like I just think it really is quite profound. That yeah,
I mean, from when I trained as a nurse, right, to what we now know now. I mean, I trained in the early 80s, so it's like a whole different paradigm that's gone on. And, things that we never thought were possible. People used
hmm,
to write people off because they didn't think they could recover. And literally
well, yeah,
because
of course they would.
we didn't have the same thing and the knowledge and the knowing now. Now, we have neuroplasticity. We know about how
Mm,
we can give electrical stimulation to help grow things. We know how to put chips in brains and do things. It's incredible what we can do now and have someone walk because we've now put a chip in their brain. So
yeah,
it just is amazing that to think that that technology is there where it wasn't before.
yeah, that is right.
And I think of my grandmother, and I mean, I'm 60, but I think of my grandmother who had the ox cart. There were no cars.
That's the what? Sorry,
Ox cart.
what is
An
that?
ox cart is a cart, pulled by oxen, cattle.
Okay, wait,
Right.
really?
I mean, that's less than 200 years, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's to think we've progressed
Mm.
that massively in that short space of time.
I think the only thing that there's a slight downside in terms of our progression. I do think that there's almost like a disconnect with nature again. Like it would be lovely to just go wake up and have that like farm life. I feel
Mm.
like the farm life is very not a thing anymore, especially in like the UK. It's just not as common as maybe as what it was before. So I do think that's like the a little bit of a downside, that we see animals as completely different
Yeah.
to ourselves, and we couldn't think of a cow being upset or showing love, and actually I think they really do.
I think anything that has
I love it.
potential, I mean, like,
Mhm,
is it love in the same way? Because I think love is also a very cognitive thing.
mhm,
We have a feeling, but there's also a cognitive element that sits with it. It may be that they definitely like the warmth and they like the connection, which we know, right?
yeah,
Because that's what babies do. They
yeah,
cuddle in and they want the warmth because it gives them safety. I definitely think when we move towards things, we're moving towards safety. We
mhm,
know that that's, and they care about their young, so therefore they must have some form of feeling. And we
yeah,
definitely know that they would grieve for their child
yeah,
because
yeah,
there's more than enough evidence to show that animals miss their babies
yeah, and their partners as well.
and partners. Yeah. I was looking at the world of dogs and wild dogs. They were finding that the wild dogs that had been hurt and they had taken them out of their little pack and took them into hospital. They were dying until they realized that they needed to have another dog there. The
Wow,
moment they brought another wild dog in and just kenneled it with them just for that period, the survival rate went up to 90%.
that's
So they
crazy.
were dying from lack of connection to their pack, right?
I think that would be a great thing to swiftly move on to regarding like the connection that you think we have at the moment. Because I can imagine like with um a lot of pregnant women, a lot of the time I feel like they've only really got their partner, and maybe like the odd friend or so. How do you think that loneliness like comes into the health of the pregnancy, and what can they sort of do
Yeah.
to kind of combat that? Because even like, so of course I'm 26. So many of my friends and colleagues have also said, like they're really struggling with loneliness. And then when my friends have been pregnant, they're just so extremely overwhelmed. And I think it kind of comes down to that lack of feeling like they've got support
Mm.
and loneliness that intertwines.
Yeah, we're living in a world, aren't we, where our parents or our support network, we move away very often from our support network to
Mm.
go to work, right? So
Yeah.
we've got displaced. And interestingly enough, we'll hang around with people that have children because often what happens is, and I've noticed that the people that often don't have children and their friends have children, it sort of changes for a while, right?
Hmm.
Because what's happened is they haven't learnt to be separate from their child because they've gone into a thing where, because part of the belief is that, it's me, my child, they haven't learnt the feelings of being able to trust that their child doesn't have to be with them all the time.
Mm.
And so therefore they don't go out with their buddies and with their friends. So they
Yeah.
actually sever that. And also it makes it really hard for their friends to come and talk to them, right? Because their whole world is full of baby.
Yeah.
Because that's all that is in their world right now.
Hmm.
So it gets very hard for friends to visit their friends that have got children. So you find that most mothers will gather together and other friends will feel left out very often.
Yeah.
But she's lonely because she really wants her friends, right? The friends that were there before the pregnancy. So it really is about learning to find a way that during that pregnancy period that you and the friends are actually forming a different kind of relationship.
Yeah. And how would you sort of go on to say about that different kind of relationship? Like, what sort of, because obviously they're going to expect the you that they've always known. And you have to sort of say, I have changed. Because I think commonly we always hear about, I lost myself in
Mm,
motherhood, and
yeah.
I wanted to get myself back. I wanted to get my spark back. But I really like that you've classed that as a different relationship rather than a separation of yourself
Yeah.
from your motherhood role.
Yeah, you've got to have a different relationship. You've got to have a different relationship with your partner now, right?
Yeah.
And as through all life cycles, you're going to when your child goes to school, you're going to learn to have a different relationship with them because it's going to become different as they start to fall in love with whoever they're going to fall in love with. That person's going to take precedent in their life, and your life you have to form a different way of holding that attachment, right?
Yeah.
So it's really about learning how during that pregnancy, and I think it's on both parts. It's really about saying, I am pregnant, and you can say, yeah, I know you got a big bump,
Yeah.
and being able to say, when the time comes through that, there are going to be times that you're going to talk too much about baby. Hey, hold on a minute. If I feel left out a little bit and I want to talk about what's going on here, I need to be able to have these markers where I can say, hey, I want to be with you, but I don't want to just keep hearing this, right? We
Yeah.
can talk about this for a short period of time, but I want to be here.
Oh, I think, yeah, I would be so terrified to even suggest it, you
But you
know?
have to. You have to. You have to be able to say to someone, "Hey, hold on a minute." And I've done it. I've said, "You know what? I love your kids dearly. They are wonderful,
Mm.
wonderful, wonderful kids, and I can see you're so happy. But hey, hold on a minute. I'm visiting you.
Yeah.
I'm visiting you." And I've actually said to the partner before, "Go and take the child out, please, because I'm visiting her. She needs some time to be, if I need to brush her hair or I need to do something for her, I'm going to do
Uh,
it now, right?" Or make an arrangement with the husband beforehand that that's what you're going to do. So it's really about there are ways to do it so that so the fear of her actually, because what often happens is when you've had your baby for 9 months, you and your baby have grown together. You're enmeshed basically, right?
uh,
And the connection from from breastfeeding and also the oxytocin that's released, it builds a bond in your brain. And so when the first separation happens, like when a child goes to school or goes to nursery school or whatever, that separation feels so intense that it's almost like a part of your brain doesn't get any energy. It's like a big black
uh,
hole forms in your brain. So then you get this horrible feeling. So you want to try and start training that from very early on.
uh,
And part of that is really about giving short bursts where mum is on her own without her baby.
yeah.
And the easiest way to do that is with family or with friends.
Uh,
So the baby goes out, mum knows that baby's away, and you having a relationship so she can see that life is still there, that she's still having fun, that she can still have her life, and she can still have the other. This
yeah.
is not an either or, it's an and.
Uh,
It's an and life. And I think that's what often happens when women get pregnant is that they think, well, now this is this, that's the end of that life. Now there's this, I have this life. And then what do I do next? Right.
yeah.
And it's really about, hey, you can have that, you can have both those lives still.
Uh,
It just requires them to navigate. And I do remember Kate, she is a psychologist now, but when I did it, I was doing gentle birth with her. So, but she wrote a book, A Woman Can Have Everything, just not all at the same time.
I think I've actually seen that before.
Yeah. I can't remember her surname. It's escaped me. She's a broadcaster. She was a
Yeah.
broadcaster on TV, on breakfast TV, Kate something. But yeah, exactly. She wrote this book and she went and studied psychology once she had her 2 kids. So life transformed in a different way.
Uh,
She just changed the goalposts in different ways, but she kept with her friends. She kept with everyone. She kept that personality going
yeah.
and at the same time was able to be a really good mum. So I think it's infinitely possible. And I think as friends, because I think for friends it can be quite hard, but you've got to recognize that you've got to have a new relationship with your friend too. It's evolving. Everything's evolving.
Yeah, for
So how do I create a new relationship that includes her and the baby or and
yeah.
family? It's kind of like when they get a boyfriend, don't they? Or that get married or whatever, friends. For the first few times, while they're so into each other that they just exclude everybody.
Yeah.
And then they slowly start to kind of open up. It's the same thing.
Uh-huh.
It's an evolution of the relationship.
How do you think somebody should, like, navigate that conversation? Do you think they should just mention that and then try really hard to be present with their friend and remember why they were friends sort of in the
Yeah,
first place?
exactly. Exactly. That's it. And I think, we can cause so much damage by not saying from the
Mm,
heart, not talking from the heart. We can have that conversation if we truly, truly, truly love this friend.
yeah.
If we truly love this friend and you're going to say, hey, I want to come and visit you,
Mm,
but I find it hard when I can see you're struggling. I find it
yeah.
hard when all you can do is talk about that. And I have a friend that has so much more. So how can I help you? And how can we have a conversation that's an adult conversation? I bet you're dying for it.
Yeah.
So you say it and then you bring a joke in. You bring
Mhm.
something in so that you can lighten it. So you have grave moments and light moments. And
Mm.
you can play in a kind of a dance. Allows that, hey, this is not so serious, but this is serious. It's kind of that sort of space. And
Yeah.
develop a lightness of being. I think it's really important.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
think you are exceptional. I think you're wonderful.
thank
I
you.
think you could be a coach for all sorts, communication, relationships, your body, embodying like,
Well, what is it? It's all relationships, isn't it?
it's
Everything is about
everything.
a
Yeah.
relationship.
I'm obsessed. How can I actually, yeah, I want to say I could listen and speak to you all day.
Like,
How can people work with you? And can people work with you if they're not pregnant?
oh yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
I see people, I work, certainly I see a lot of pregnant women that have postnatal problems, so not pregnant. And yes, most of my work is in between. But yeah, I see a lot of men too. Yeah. I see a
Mhm.
lot of men. I see a lot of women for different things
Yeah.
because my background was that I I started with working with women with gut problems and IBS
Mhm.
and all of that, and really anything that was more to do with illness, because I think at the
Mhm.
heart of all illness is some form of stress or distress that the body is adapted to and
Yeah.
not adapted well. So once you can get that program, you more or less will become more specialist as you go on in different
Mhm.
things for most counselors. But yeah, there are things that you can do. You just need to be with the person present, which is what you said. What's the present, right?
Mhm.
The present is the gift we give ourselves,
Yeah.
and the present is the gift we give to others, right?
Mm.
Our presence. So just listening to anyone, you automatically start to begin to hear what is not said.
Yeah.
And you speak into the what's not said.
Yeah. Yeah. I really get that. I also think it's lovely to just be able to like be and you can really feel each other. And there's been like no words of communication either. And you automatically just know that like maybe I'll just put the kettle on. Do you know what I mean? Just like weird little things
Yeah.
that is there just hanging out as well.
Yeah, and I think if you have a real sense of being able to step into someone's shoes and think, well, what would it be like to be in their shoes? And
Uh-huh.
ask the question at that point. So, what is my worst thought that I could be thinking right now?
Uh-huh.
And that's when you name it, so that you take away the stigmata that sits with it, right?
I'm sorry, the worst thought that I could
So
be
if I
thinking of.
imagine myself in your shoes and I know
Yeah.
you're struggling about something, like you might come and you might talk to me about weight, for example.
Uh-huh.
And one of the biggest things as we start to feel something or feel what's going in, I might come into a story and I might stop and say, what's something that I might use in this situation? But I might actually talk a little bit about, I might name, so for example, someone might talk about, why they're hiding their body.
Uh-huh.
So I might name, okay, who are you hiding from? Where in your life have you been hiding? Right.
Yeah.
So you ask the question of what you think might be the core problem that might
Uh-huh.
be happening. Of course, you've been talking to them, so you get a real sense where is this belief or something that's
Yeah.
healthy, and that's where you ask the question. That's the most important thing. And once you do that, most barriers are gone because
Mm.
you've asked the question that they're really fearful of.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite interesting. I remember I had an ovary out, and then I had a CA-125 that was in the 100. I think it was just under 100, and I put myself in a box, literally, that weekend. But
Uh-huh.
I managed to get hold of the doctor in the hospital, and I walked into the room, and he could see I was stressed as hell, and my partner had gone in. As I sat down, luckily, I knew him from previously as a nurse. And he
Uh-huh.
looked at me and I said, "I've spent all weekend worrying." He said, "Did you put yourself in a box?" Meaning, did you put yourself in the coffin, right?
Yeah.
And I immediately said, "Too damn right I did."
Yeah.
And that was it, because he had named exactly what I had felt and felt at that
Mhm.
moment. And my partner thought this was the worst thing anyone could have done. But for me, it was the relief that someone would
Uh-huh.
say, you put yourself where you were going to die, right? And he named that for me. And the stress went because I started laughing and I just felt, oh, you've named it. You've said the right thing. And the importance of being able to say things and be comfortable saying
Mm.
something like that, which can be really frightening for someone like my partner. But for me, he knew me. And so for me, it was the right thing for him to have said.
And I think, as you said, you started laughing straight away. It completely changed that dynamic of, you haven't been thinking that, have you? You can't think like that, blah, 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 blah. That's just going to make you spiral even more. Whereas adding a bit of humor,
Yeah.
get
I
it
mean,
right on the head,
it was
first
just so
thing.
weird. I mean, that was the last thing I expected. You put yourself in a box? Yes, I did.
Yeah,
But it was the truth. I'd gone through what's going to happen with the chemo, what's going to happen with this, what's going to happen with that, right?
yeah,
So we have to when we name what we think is going on very often, and we do it in a gentle way, the right kind of way. He knew me well enough
yeah.
to know. But if we're able to do it with a little bit of a joke, right? A little bit of a joke, lightness of heart, but with good intention. And that's the
Mm,
key, heart, right?
yeah,
Sit with your heart with a good intention. It will change.
that is really beautiful.
We have to
I've,
go with this heart. We have to go, like you said earlier on, you said something about with friends, right? Is that
mhm,
what was the reason we were a friend in the first place?
mhm.
We have to keep connecting to that.
Yeah, I think that's really important for relationships as well, especially
Yeah,
when they've just
exactly.
gotten the new
Yeah,
baby.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Why are we together? Why did
Mm,
we come together? What did we hope we would have in this future, right? And
yeah.
how do we get back to that goal that we had? So if
One of
you,
the things I loved about our previous call was the suggestion of, like, women are from Venus, men are from Mars, and that communication barrier. Because I think sometimes it's just frustration of communication.
yeah,
And neither of you understand what to do for the other person. And you're both just like, rather than actually like,
yeah,
interweaving and coming together, um, to build something that you both hoped for
yeah,
and
yeah.
visualized together.
Yeah. Well, I still say to my partner every now and then, I say, you know what? I am so cross with you right now, but if I let go of steam here, this is going to really cause a trouble. Let me go out the room now. I always
Mhm.
tell him that I'm going out the room because if they need to know that I still want to stay connected,
Yeah.
even if I'm going out, I love you, but I'm cross with you right now.
Yeah.
Going out the room, right? I need to go and cool down so that I can work out what I was cross about, right?
Mhm.
Because maybe it's nothing to do with you, but probably something.
Yeah.
If
Maybe
I
that just, like, triggered something or
Exactly, and we have to be able to learn to manage our own emotions.
I think blame is a huge one. I think a lot of people instantly go to blame, and
Mm,
I understand why, because they don't think anything could be going on internally, but there's always a
yeah,
reaction because of your wiring, the things that you believe, things that are in your heart. So I think reducing that blame and blaming yourself almost, and then coming back to how that's created that emotion.
yeah. Well, I think, the most important thing is when you say, "Hey, I'm gonna go out. I'm going to go and work out what it is I'm really angry about." It's not about going out and think what I'm gonna blame him for. It's about where did this anger come from?
Yeah.
Where did this anger come from? What did it mean when that person said that?
Mhm.
Right? What did that remind me of? Who did that? And it's really interesting because normally it comes to your childhood pattern. It
Mhm.
normally comes, you might remember something where someone had said something to you, and actually that's what's triggering. And
Yeah.
you're in a new era now, right? So this feeling is still from that old time. This feeling is not in the new time. So we've got to update that. So when you go out of the room and you check out what's that about? What's the meaning this anger? Does it feels like, like you haven't listened to me and I never get heard and da 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 and all that story that goes. But where in your life were you not heard? Where were you disrespected? Where were your needs overridden? Right? Okay, that's about that story.
What if some books I know I experienced this and other people have also experienced this, that they was almost so disconnected that they couldn't go back through that situation. What would your advice be there if they can't really come up with, they're almost like guessing what they
Right.
think could be? rather than like, the only thing that worked for me was doing, like, EFT tapping, and I
But
really figured out
EFT
a lot.
tapping is doing something, right? Going
Mhm,
out and being able to ask those questions takes a little bit of time, but the EFT actually does a realignment, right? Because it's
no,
relaxing you. When its first job is to regulate the nervous system.
mhm,
So that's what it's doing. When we regulate the nervous system, we are now in a process to be open to receive. So we can now hear the jumble that's going on because now it's firing slower and now we can filter it can come down so that we can make sense of what it is. And often I don't know when you did EFT, but often when you do EFT, if you actually once you start tapping and you start naming things that come on in the EFT, you start to notice that actually you get the emotional stuff touching on the actual physical words that start to generate. And when you start to do that, one is if you've learned how to use that to heal the feeling or you want to desensitize the feeling, if you're going to desensitize, you haven't cured the problem
mm,
because actually the whole part of it is going through the knowing of it too, so that you don't
mhm,
repeat that same pattern again.
okay.
We have to put some cognitive stuff in it. So if you've got the feelings that are going in and you start to notice, oh, I'm getting more angry or I'm getting more upset, stay with the upset because you're in a safe environment.
Yeah,
Stay with it. Stay with it until it regulates, and then you go back and you say, "Oh, well, that's interesting. What was I so upset about? What was the meaning? What did I attribute to it?" Right? So that next time I can tap that away in a different way. So I can
mhm,
tap on that meaning, like I never get understood. Okay, tap on I never get understood. Wait, so that you can really go through all the layers that then help that whole nervous track. Because when we have a trauma or any kind of negative effect, there's so many connections, and you might just get through one. You want to try and get the whole lot.
yeah,
So you
yeah.
want, yeah, so that you can actually totally transform.
Because I think obviously a lot of my work is built around like self-perception, body image, how we're
Yeah,
perceiving
yeah.
ourselves in the world. So I think it's really interesting to consider that we're only sort of getting that one part rather than all of it.
Mm,
I'm really seeing how almost brave and courageous we can be to
mm.
keep going into that very, very almost insufferable, uncomfortable feeling of maybe anger, sadness, shame, whatever it may be, and really keep heightening this shame for in this safe, controlled environment to kind of like clear it all out, like dig it all out.
And I think what's also important, I think, in that is that there you have you've strengthened first an internal guide
Yeah.
that is able because when we have shame, we need to have someone say, "Well, you were only little.
Hmm.
You were only little. That was somebody else's belief, not yours." Right?
Yeah.
You need to have your own internal guide somewhere along the line that can actually bring some other deeper
Full
awareness to
circle.
it. Yeah, yeah, you need to have that full circle. Otherwise, you don't get the deeper healing that can happen. And like when I said naming something, naming means we can normalize it.
Yeah.
And once we've normalized it, the power goes away.
Yeah, it really does. I think with like so many things, even if you said like what's the worst thing you've ever thought of in your whole entire life, if you would then say it to somebody, especially if they don't react, I think that can be a very, very powerful
Yeah,
gift to receive.
yeah, exactly.
Me and my ex-partner used to do it quite often. Well, not quite often, but when we would think about the most terrible things we've ever said or what's been eating us alive because we've kept it from each other or something, bringing that neutrality back to it,
Yeah, yeah.
even as people that we weren't girlfriend and boyfriend, just as people to be like, I'm not going to bring my true self here. I'm just going to hear you out of whatever it is. So
Yeah,
yeah, I think it's really powerful to
I think so.
neutralize.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, it's a human condition to not be rejected, right? It's a human
Mhm.
condition to not be alone because when we're alone, we're not actually safe,
Okay, yeah.
right? We are safer when we are, well, it's a perceived thing, but we are safer when we are with people and people are
Mhm.
helping us, right? We expand in that kind of situation. We grow in that kind of situation. We can't grow on our own. We need external stuff. It is that fear of being excluded in some way that shame really has
Mhm.
its power, right?
Yeah.
So we don't want to voice our anger because people don't want us to, because if we voice our anger, or if we say something to someone, they may hate us, they may ignore us, they may break up with us, all of these things. But and so we do stupid behaviors, in order to keep that status quo,
Mm.
instead of realizing we could have something even better, even with this person who's doing whatever they're doing or you're doing. You don't have to break up just because you've had a fight,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's so important to recognize that and to be able to say, yeah, okay, I can say what I think you can't just say anything that you want to say because people do get hurt. I think you need to be aware of things, but at the same time recognize that if someone is able to just go, "Oh, you're angry. What are you so angry about?" Just that
Mm.
hearing, just that listening, as you said, without anything, without any attachment,
Mhm.
and just hear to you, and you say, well, you can go off like a 10 and a dozen, and then quietly take a breath. Because once you've got it out, the breath comes,
Yeah.
and then we
Yeah.
calm down and we go, probably it's not that bad.
Yeah. Always.
That was just me
Every
going
time.
off.
Yeah. Literally.
Yeah. And then you're able to hear if someone says, well, would you like some advice? Or what would you like to try and do? Right?
Yeah.
How could I help you?
Yeah. One of my favorite things is, would you like comfort or would you like logic? Or do you just want me to
S-
listen?
What a beautiful. Yes, 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 yes. What do you want?
Mhm. Because I think we're so quickly my biggest thing that I live by is what helps the fish doesn't help the monkey. Yeah. No, what helps the monkey doesn't help the fish.
Yeah.
Like the concept where the monkey's like really wanting to get that fish on top of the tree because that's where they're safe. Well, that's
Yeah.
for the
That's death for
fish.
the fish. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So to always sort of trust yourself and telling you got you. I'm going to be beside you whilst you go through those things, I think is truly transformational for that person. Because then I think it almost breaks that codependency that would later almost irritate you.
And sometimes it's a little bit of, we all come with our stuff in a relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, John Gottman says within 15 minutes, we're already in the pattern that's going to set us up unless we can consciously change it. We're in the pattern for life because of all our own learning. But if we're able to, like generally many men like to fix. I know it's a big, broad overstatement, but men tend to not listen to women a lot. They tend to say, well, give them a solution. And many a time I've had to say to my partner, all I want to do is rant. I
Mhm.
don't need a solution. I'll find a solution. I just want to rant right now.
Yeah.
So we have to also be able to say to someone, this is what I want right now. So I love that you ask people, do you want to just be? Do you want some advice? Or do you want comfort?
Yeah.
Put the kettle on, right?
Yeah. And give them a hug and
And
just
give them
let
a
them
hug.
cry
Yeah.
and just stay
Yeah.
completely chill.
Well, it's like my partner knows he can't fix anything for me, so he's learned that he's got to go. Like he knows that he has to give me a hug, and then he's got
Mhm.
to go and make tea.
Yeah.
Go and make tea, and I will come out when I'm ready. When I've worked out what it is that I'm crying about, what's upset me, and how I'm going to put it together, and how I can actually talk to you about it. Because I don't yet know. Because when we're emotional, it's very hard to word what we want to say
Mm.
because we don't often know.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. What's one of the best things that you guys have ever done for your communication style?
I
Or
think
do you think it is that space, that freedom of space without them reacting to it?
I think for me, because he was quite together. I think he was more together than I was, strangely enough, before we had
As in like calmness
in
or like
calmness, and he definitely thinks things through very differently from
Mhm.
from me. I'm quite emotional. I do all
Mhm.
sorts of things. But I think I realized that one of the things that I really needed to do was make sure that when I, like, for example, if there was going to be a miscommunication or there was something going on that I needed to speak to him about, was to set time. To
Yeah.
actually say, you know what, I do want to talk to you about this is something that I really need to talk about, but I can't talk about it right now. Can we find a time to schedule it?
Love that.
That was really important. I also learned, and I know this was a bit of John Gray's work, and although I don't agree with all of John Gray's work, but wrote Women from Mars and Men from Venus. I mean,
Ah,
Women
okay.
from Venus, Men from Mars. I don't agree with all of it, but but the thing, what I found that I used to get incredibly hurt because when I was at home and he'd come home, I would want to talk straight away, right?
Mhm.
And I would have hello, and I would go and talk. And then he hadn't finished work yet in his head. So therefore, I coming there was like overload. And so I started to feel really upset about this. And then eventually I kind of thought, you know what? I heard about the man cave thing. And I thought,
Mhm.
okay, what I'm going to do, as hard as it is, I'm going to stay in the kitchen. I'm going to shout hello and I'm going to stay in the kitchen until he's ready to come in. And he always comes in and says hello. That's what he does. But what I had done, but by going towards him and pushing my energy towards him, he didn't have space
He's been like,
to come
pushing
towards
you
me.
away or
Right.
something.
And so that was the difference. Actually, it was such a big difference by just staying in the kitchen, shouting hello. Hey, I'm here when you want to speak to me. I'm here when you know, and he would go upstairs, quickly do whatever he needed to finish off. It was never work, but it was stuff that I needed
Yeah.
to contain himself. And then he'd come down and it was done. And I realized just a simple technique of doing that really transformed our relationship.
Yeah.
Crazily, but it really transformed it. So I think it can be very useful to read some self-help books, but I think just really paying attention to what people are saying. So when
Mm.
someone says, "Hey, this is bothering me," pay attention.
Yeah.
Pay attention. If you do it 2 or 3 times, stop and
Mhm.
work out what it is. Why does it bother them, first of all? And are you sacrificing your relationship by not considering them? So,
Yeah. And
it's a give
I
and
do
a
think
take,
it,
isn't it? It's a give and a take.
yeah. Because I think you can go at somebody else's needs and pace, let's say, but I think they also need to meet you with that as well, in a way. Because I think if you don't, you just become resentful because you feel like you're constantly self sacrificing in a weird sort of way because it's not being reciprocated or no ideas aren't sort of coming up. So I do think it is very interesting to see communication and the way we feel about our partners, and our partners could be completely oblivious and vice versa. And
Yeah.
you think you're on the same page, and then you're like, "Oh, we're really not."
I know it's really incredible, but I mean, I think we go through our whole life not necessarily knowing because certainly in my case, I was striving all the time. And I think you also had the same history of striving, but you may have had a bit more awareness now, thank God. And so when I met my partner, I was still in that mode, right?
Yeah,
And so it took a while for me to actually, and I was a therapist. So let me tell you, therapists don't always have the best self-awareness sometimes. It's about really learning to pay attention, what's not working, when things are going wrong. That's my pattern. That's my
yeah,
pattern, right? And I also say, for me, love isn't love if it hurts. So be really careful when you're loving someone. If it's hurting all the time, then it's not love. Then there's something going on in the
yeah,
way your relationship is set up because it's not meant to hurt. It's meant to be expansive and lovely.
yeah, and delightful.
Yeah, delightful. I'm still with my partner for 30 years now. So
Beautiful.
to be really honest, you want to still be amused by them. Wake up in the morning and
Yeah.
something goes off and you can just laugh your head off because they've said something so stupid and you don't know why you're laughing. I think that's
I love that.
yeah.
Okay. To end on, what's your top 3 things you'd give somebody to try to do this evening or tomorrow? And it could be,
So when the top 3 things to give somebody, right. I think the most important thing is to, yeah, begin a process of just stopping and taking that deep breath in and out.
yeah,
Doesn't matter
I
where
loved
you
your
are.
morning routine things we
Yeah,
mentioned.
I think that's the key thing. I think the second thing is to find some ritual within yourself that is going to help you stay centered in some way.
Mm,
So it either is a prayer and find something that resonates, right? Find something that really resonates for you, or a song that really resonates for you. So something that's going to make you feel good, and more peaceful and content rather than just good. I think it needs to be
Yeah.
something that's going to really hold you in a good place. And then I always carry this thing. Happiness is not a word, it's a state of mind. So I have a mnemonic for happiness is how a powerful person interrupts a negative and installs a new experience super successfully, right? So
Yeah.
swap those two. Install. So if you interrupt a negative and you install a new belief
Experience.
super
Yeah.
successfully, right? That works really well because actually we can only be happy when even though it's a feeling state, it's very often a mental state.
Do you think?
You can switch a thought. If you can switch a thought, you
Uh-huh.
can be happy. So if you see something and, for example, you say, well, the person hasn't phoned me, then if you switch a thought and thought, well, maybe he just hasn't got to the phone yet. Or maybe they're so busy that they haven't found the time right now. Or maybe
Uh-huh.
they've gone out to buy a present for me and they
Yeah.
just come into the fact. Do you see? You can swap that thought by a feeling, by three things. If you interrupt that thought, what will happen is you can create good feelings.
Yeah.
You can create it. So it is. I'm not saying that the physiology doesn't count, but what I
Uh-huh.
am saying is that if we keep
Uh-huh.
swapping thoughts, eventually that negative deflection will become a more positive reflection, right?
Yeah.
It will. So, yeah, just swap the negative thought.
Yes. Yeah. Because then I think you will start to feel it as well.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's harder when it's backed by uh something deeper, but I think on the surface level, when it's to do with other people, you can like create your own because you're creating a random story anyway.
I think you
You'll
can do
say,
it for
"Oh, they
yourself.
haven't contacted me because they're not interested," or you know, they're not bothered. So you're still creating a random story anyway.
Well, I think you can do it for yourself because I've done it for myself. I mean,
Yeah.
I fell out. I was busy bad mouthing. Sorry, I was busy bad mouthing someone while I was going outside, and I fell. And I remember thinking, "You've been punished for this." Right? I remember that. Of course, that God punishes you for being bad mouthing because I knew I had a guilty conscience for it, and I immediately switched and I said, "No, that's not true. God's got too many things to do to worry about me having bad mouthed." Right? So this is not about me being blamed here. This is just about me not paying attention to where I was walking.
I love that.
So I
Yeah.
swapped it around. I turned around and then I started laughing because why I laughed was because I had done that switch. In that moment in time,
So
I had made
quickly.
a decision, right?
Yeah.
And I think it does take time to do that because when you're in the middle of depression, it can be very hard, right? It
Mm.
can be very hard because that's not your natural order of things.
Mhm.
But if you do it, if you move the compass by 1 degree every day, you will get to a different destination. So just try one thing, one small thing, even just one thought. Just say that's not a true thought.
Yeah.
That's my old conditioning. That's not a true thought. And just
Mhm.
interrupt it.
It's not a helpful thought either. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not helpful. Just I cancel, cancel, cancel. Even just saying cancel, cancel, cancel
Yeah.
will be good enough to just
Mhm.
move that break, right? Because in our brain, we have something called the N400, and this is a big brain spike that happens when we don't follow prediction. So I
Okay.
don't know if you've heard about pattern matching in the brain. We pattern match. We don't get,
Kind of.
when you hear someone saying something and you finish their sentences, you're pattern matching, right? Sometimes
Okay.
often we get it wrong, but often we get it right too. But that's a pattern match. But when it's not quite as we wanted it or we expected it, the brain goes, "Whoa, what's going on?" Right? It does this huge, big spike, and that releases a lot of dopamine and it releases good hormones. So if we do that, so when I turned around and I said, "Oh no, that's just me walking and not paying attention," it was such a huge spike because it was so unusual for me to do that because I was
Mm.
blaming myself. Hey, guess what? Right?
Mhm.
I just immediately laughed. So this is the dopamine hit that gets released when you have that kind of spike.
Nice.
So
I
yeah,
like that a lot.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the reason why I sort of mentioned that you couldn't do it about yourself wasn't that, but I think it could easily. I like that that was a random scenario that you almost didn't have control over. You couldn't control yourself from falling down as such. Yeah. Whereas I think if you've got a bad thought about yourself and you just quickly reframe it to like a positive one, I think that's quite fragile and isn't very. I think it's great as a
Mm.
habit to do, but I don't think that necessarily sticks. I think you really have to believe that
Yeah,
you're
I think
not that and you are that. It's kind of like everyone's out to get me, the world hates me, the world's a terrible place, versus actually seeing and feeling into the beauty and magic within the world and people.
yeah, and I think that if you have got that belief, it's very hard. You're always looking for confirmation evidence, the confirmation
Yeah,
bias, right?
constantly.
So that happens, and so those part of the therapy is still part of learning to get them to switch their brain,
Mhm,
but it does require other things too. Yeah, it
mhm.
does require interrupting it in some way by
Yeah.
either getting them to just breathe very gently into their body, starting to develop a different relationship with their body. There are a lot of things that you have to address when it goes there, but very often helping someone through that fragile state is a longer journey, right?
Yeah.
It's never just a short journey. It
Mhm.
it does require a lot of safety to be put in place first before people actually really are able to step aside from that. Because if you've
Yeah.
lived with that for a long time, your brain is those are very big roadways,
Yeah.
believing that, everyone's out to get you because that's all you've seen, all you know. It takes a lot of evidence to the contrary
Mm. Yeah,
to
it
change
does.
it.
And I think if you don't have that evidence just handed to you, or you can't see it, you kind of need somebody to point it out for you.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
and that's why I
absolutely.
think, working with coaches are so incredible because they can just show you a completely different side.
Yeah, and I think you've got to be really gentle, haven't you? Because I think something like that is, I think the feeling that it generates is where you're going to focus with the EFT for them. Because you don't want
Yeah.
the feeling to attach the thought, right? The feeling, generally, the thought. I remembered William James says, "Do I feel because I run, or is it because I'm running that I'm feeling?" Right? Is it a feeling from the heart, from the body, creating a feeling, or is it the other way round? And
I
of
like
course, it's
that.
bidirectional, right? And so but we definitely know that what gets us moving is our body. So if
Mm.
we can get people to focus in when they have that thought, where is the feeling it's generating in their body?
Yeah.
Maybe they have the thought and they want to get out of their body, right? Because the feeling is so big. So what happens in that space just before is
Mhm.
really going to be the key that's going to shift them. So you've got to find out what's happening there to build the resource in order for them to be able to stay in their body long enough for them to bring themselves to that feeling, right? To be able to hold the feeling. So that's really important. But you can only heal if you've actually worked properly with the body, right?
Yeah.
Because the
Which I think
feeling
is
is in the body.
brilliant how you do it and explain it as well, especially like the vibrating thing happening so commonly. I think that is exceptional. Because
Mm.
again, like when you're doing your tapping, of course, everything you've tapped on is vibrating. If you're doing a
Yes.
meditation and somebody is guiding you, you can feel that. Different sensations, not necessarily vibration. But yeah, I am extremely curious about your more of your work in terms of the body vibration um, and like different things that you do. So I'll probably give you a message tomorrow
We'll
because I
chat
do
again.
think that is just really exceptional. I think it is something that's not really spoken about.
Mm.
We always hear about, being a high vibrational woman and this, that, and the other. But I think that truly is what a high vibrational woman is. It is when you actually have control over your mind and your phys- physical, I don't know what I'm trying to say, physical particles to move in a way that is in flow with your mind control. I think that is just wonderful.
I, th- I think. as in order to be that, and it's to
Yeah.
recognize that this heart resonates, you know, from the moment where we are born. So from the moment we are conceived, we are already dividing in cells, and actually a cell that forms in the middle of our brain actually
Yeah.
forms the first heart cell.
Wow, okay. That's cute.
So there's a direct connection straight away, right, between this mind and this body. And once the heart starts to beat, what starts to happen is the meridians start to be formed.
Okay.
And and if you think about how nerves grow and how cells know where to go, they have to be informed. How do cells know where to go? They know where to go because of the heart. The vibration of the heart
Yeah.
actually oscillates them and helps them direct where they need to go along the whole of the
So it's
body.
almost like the heart is the intelligence of the brain.
Well, remember the brain cell is in the heart, the first heart cell, primitive heart
Yeah.
cell, primordial heart cell. So it makes sense. They're both necessary, and they both have the same kinds of connections. But the heart obviously has a stronger resonance, right? Because it's in
Yeah.
a drum, right? The brain doesn't have the resonance that's the same as what's in a drum. So of course you're going to get a bigger beat that's going to be there. So it makes sense. But when we look at the epistemology and the epidemiology of the way things are, okay, you find that actually when you look at how nerve cells and blood vessels and lymph vessels, all of them form a line along the body, and that's
Uh-huh.
actually where all those meridian points are. So the meridian sheaths. It's almost like they form like little, like if you think about a glove,
Yeah.
they grow in the glove almost
Okay.
all the way around the body. So it does make sense that the heart would be informing things. So when our heart is resonating, where we're not in any dissonance, where we can feel things and we can respond by speaking because the heart is the vehicle through which the soul speaks. If we speak from our heart, we're speaking from our soul, right?
Yeah.
And when we speak from our soul, we're resonating. We're resonating at the frequency of the soul.
Mhm.
And if we think that the soul is the spark of life or the bit of God that lives in us, then
Yeah.
hey, guess what? We're going to resonate at the frequency of God.
Yeah.
Hey, what better than that, really?
I know, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So then, when you sit with that resonance,
Mm.
then it's really wonderful because that's when you can command in a very different way.
Yeah. And I think you can really hold yourself and have that almost like that worthiness of that you're alive and you're embracing every single part of it. I think that's
Yeah.
an exceptional way to think about you as a human.
Yeah. And yeah, and us as a human, but also us as a collective, right?
Mm.
That we are here
Yeah.
for each other. We are here for each other. We
Yeah. It
forget
was
that we're
even
here for each other.
it was something wild. I am completely paraphrasing. It's the first time I've ever read it. It was in my book, The Daily Laws this morning. And it was basically how we're all like connected and how like I want to say microns, the system within a rock
Yeah.
is very similar to the system that's within our brain,
Mhm.
and how we don't look at every single rock and think you are the end all and be all. You are an exceptional rock. It's just there. It's just being. It's just being. It's
A
rock
rock.
with its own purpose. Yeah, and yet the molecules or whatever is very similar to the system in our own brain. And I just thought that is wild. I think in our own heads, we really do think that like everything is so important, but like we are important to ourselves, but like it's not,
What
you
we
know,
what we bring is the collective importance, isn't it?
mm,
It's what we bring
to
and put
that.
in the earth is the collective importance and what adds to whatever it is. I mean, I have a belief that, we are all aspects of God and God finding God's self, right? God,
Yeah.
Goddess, God, all that is. So therefore, it's our duty to, and I do think it's our duty to be like that in a way. And that doesn't mean we have to be goody two shoes. It just
Yeah.
means we have to resonate with love, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes love does mean we've got to say no. Sometimes love does mean we've got to set boundaries, right?
Yeah.
That's love, right?
Yeah.
We've got to set the right things so that other things can, when we have a boundary, we can grow into it and we can then expand beyond it, right?
Hmm.
But we need the safety for things to grow and be stable before we expand. It's about understanding that basic laws of life and utilizing them. in a very different.
Yeah. Amazing. I
I
feel like
know.
my brain has
The
grown.
world is amazing.
It
And I
is
love that you said
amazing.
the rock has that same
You're
thing. I always
amazing.
tell my clients really at our very basic elements, and part of the Kabbalah does this as well. Our basic elements, we're just elements. We are just minerals.
Mm,
We were minerals that then came together and a spark happened, the right conditions, and life was formed, right? And so if that's the case, we are, in a way, we're just the living bits of the rock.
yeah. Yeah. Literally,
Yeah,
we are.
we're the rock
But the
animated.
mobile ones.
With the mobile rocks. Yeah, literally, literally. And we can't do without them because we need our magnesium and we need our sodium and we need our
Lit-
potassium. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love that you read that. That's nice.
I'll take a photo and I'll send it to you today.
Yeah,
So it's really
yeah,
nice.
please do.
I've got this book. I love books where it's one page a day and it's got the date.
Oh,
I'm
nice.
obsessed with them. I love that layout of a book, and it's
Well, it's
Robert
easy. It's
Zwer.
doable, isn't it?
Extremely, and it's like a meditative ritual at the morning and in the night time that just gives you it just really grounds me. I was reading the Daily Stoic for a couple of years, but I've sort of switched on to the Daily Laws now. And yeah, it's one of my favorite things I look forward. Do you know, like how you said, have that ritual that brings you joy? I think mine probably is my just daily read that's just sends me on a I just
Yeah.
like it. Those sort of thoughts just wouldn't comprehend into my mind had it not been sort of in front of me. So I'm just always so grateful to
And
experience those.
it's what feeds your soul.
Yeah.
And that's the important thing. We have to do stuff that feeds our soul.
Hmm.
And you were mentioning nature earlier on.
Mm,
And about our lack of connection to nature. And I think, it's probably, hopefully, in the future, we will start to build, I think we're planting more trees now. We're starting to see the benefits of nature. But if,
yeah.
people really start to have anything that's growing around them, really important, really important.
Yeah. Do you know what? I don't have like any plants in my house. I only have like fake ones. Just
Even
because,
one plant that grows by itself is good. Yeah.
yeah.
Or even
Actually, I
outside. It
lie. I've
doesn't.
got an aloe vera plant on my desk downstairs. That's my one plant that I've got actually.
Yeah,
But
just
I
talk to it.
think I'd like a money tree. Oh yeah, I could talk to my aloe vera plant. I'm too scared to like take a piece off and use
How
it.
big is your aloe vera plant?
Only a little one.
Or
So I
ask
don't want to
ask
like,
its ask its permission,
yeah, and talk to it and
and then
say,
just wait. And there is something called the sway. I don't know if you've ever heard of EAM as a therapy, but basically you use your body as a measure to be able to decide. So trying to keep yourself as clear a channel as possible. Try and make sure you don't have an agenda and just ask a question. Like if I said, well, you start with your name or you can start with a yes. So normally a yes would mean you'd move forward and a no would make you move back.
okay,
So if you kind of think of your name, okay, is my name, right? Is my name Tiegan? It's already going back saying no, it's not. But for you, it might come forward, right? So you can start to learn to let your body do the question. I have a friend who uses her crystals, and she'll talk to the crystal. Do I need you? Yes. No. Do you belong to me? And
uh-huh,
it's really weird how her body just moves automatically because she's set up these what we call ideomotor responses. So it's very easy to do, particularly if you're standing up, because your
yeah,
body automatically sways and it will
yeah,
sway forward. So play with that. Play with that. And
I
then you
will
can
do.
ask. You can ask the thing, is this good for me? Can
I'll
I
be
have
there holding my heels. Shall I wear heels tonight? Yes? No. Or
well,
shall I be wear trainers?
the more specific you are, the better, the better.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
if I cut off a tree, if I talk to the plant, I say, I really would love to have you for my dinner.
Yeah.
Can I cut you? Where do you want me to cut you?
Yeah. No,
Because
that's good. I love that.
I do believe the plants do feel, right? And
Yeah,
so,
I do. This
and
is
when
what
I
I don't
and
understand about
I did my
vegans. When they're like go on about like,
yeah.
how terrible it is. I'm like, I just think it's all similar. Like I do genuinely believe that animals obviously have more neurons and more different things happening because they have so many more
But they
organs.
still feel
But
energy. Plants still
yeah,
feel.
'Cause they're like, how would they know when to grow and when to not grow, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly. And they move away from of loud noises and they move towards good noises.
And
They are
sunlight.
amazingly intelligent, right?
Yeah.
So yes, but with my food or if I have something, I tend to, if it's a fish, if it's meat or whatever, I will often say, "Thank you for giving me your life."
Yeah.
I often will talk to, and I don't know the animal, but I will just look at the animal and I'll say, "Thank you for giving
With
me your life."
gratitude. I
Yeah,
love that.
it must have been hard. I know you didn't understand what was happening, and I hope it was very quick, but thank you for feeding me. And I think it's really
Yeah.
important because when you do that, you honor the food.
Uh-huh.
You're literally blessing the food. So
Yeah.
you're putting energy into the food
Mhm.
so that the
Yeah,
food
and
can
then
really
that's like
feed
coming
you
into
on
your
another
body and
level.
you're just feeling so right. That was
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah.
Lovely.